Hey guys. Okay, today we've got a interesting project, kind of a unique one. Unique in the fact that I've done this for other cars, but not an FJ Cruiser specifically. They've asked me to retrofit their restored FJ Cruiser steering wheel to a modern Ididit steering column with a Chevy spline. It's not the hardest job. I've done it before for different steering wheels. I've never done it for an FJ Cruiser. We'll walk you through how we do that and see what we can come up with. They'll be the same normal things. CNC milling, some CAD, some 3D prints, because we got to make it pretty too. And we'll go from there. Also, it needs to be budget friendly. Not my best thing. We'll see how that goes. One of the things I'm always impressed about when Stone Speed Shop sends us parts to work on is that they know it's going to a workshop. So everything is always wrapped up, protected. The chrome column is all taped. Those guys do go above and beyond. Makes it more fun to unwrap enough to work on it, but it's nice knowing it's protected. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing these, and something that I've missed in the past, is that your horn wire comes through this contact and it is keyed to the shaft. And that rotates with your steering column, so if you're making the shaft and the rest of the steering shaft from there, who cares, right? Except that your turn signal cancel is involved in this, and I've missed that in the past. So the shaft is gone, so I have to rig. You're doing right now, you're turning left. So if I turn left, it cancels. And then if I turn right, you need it to turn left and cancel. So what that means is this needs to sit somewhere in that range when this is in the vehicle. This is sitting that way to the world, and this is going to sit somewhere there on a Chevy column. Not that big a deal, except for how easy it is to mistake, because if you look, the FJ has it at the bottom center. There's a restored wheel, but the hole is in the wrong spot. So whatever we do, I'm going to have to get a hole up in this spot here. And you can see the spline is larger on the shaft. So do we respline the wheel and drill a hole? Do we make an adapter? Do we machine all this out? And then the problem comes in that they are grossly different diameters. And I need to make that appealing too. Lee never gives me an easy one. I think the solution is going to be to cut up this aftermarket steering wheel adapter that we had here. It's got some bumps and bruises on it already somewhere. They're not that bad. Basically cut down to the center core, because it does fit the Ididit columns quite nicely. I just need to get it small enough that we can hide it in the circle of that, in the circumference here, and then I'll make a 3D printed cover that bolts onto these three from this side, hides the whole thing, and comes out to the diameter of the column, which is quite a difference. So that should allow us to do the whole adapter in less than an inch, hopefully. This column's aftermarket in the truck, so they'll be able to slide it forward to make up for it anyways. And see if we can keep it budget friendly for them. I've got like 2 days for this. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so the original plan I'd had was to chuck this up on that hub and just cut right here, which would take out both halves and leave me with the hub in the center I need. But by the time this center goes in far enough into here, this is fouling on my other jaw. So I will have to mount it backwards and take off the outer first, and then I'll be able to turn it up and machine the inside. Just so we can see what we're working with, basically. Get all the extra stuff out of the way. Okay, we're set up in the second cut here. We were able to grab onto that hub quite easily now. Nothing in the way. You can see here where that old ring was hitting on these jaws and wasn't letting me get the grab I wanted to on it. You have to be careful in this setup that we dodge this hole here in the hub, which is actually where the wire for that horn button goes through. So just clock it so that it doesn't hit my jaws, because then it wouldn't be grabbing center. Okay, I'm gonna cut this off. Here is the steering wheel with its center button in. Shows you how much room we have to work with. It hides quite a bit. I took the stock alignment pins out that were in here, just so that we can get our hub adapter to work. They won't be required anymore. It'll have bolts and all those good things. I just used a nice set of Nipex pliers to get them out. If you haven't tried them before, these pliers will replace half the pliers in your drawer. They are amazing. Okay, so here's working on the little cover that'll go between the wheel and the column. I designed this with a revolve. So that's the diameter of the steering wheel's back currently, and this is the diameter of the Ididit column, which will be down here. And then I created a shape that I liked. Let me see if I can find it there. That shape. I want the wall to be 1 millimeter, just because it was easy math. And it's an FJ, so we're doing things in millimeters. So once that's designed like that, you just click the revolve button at the top. Revolve that item around the axis of that there, and there's your revolve. I'll have to put some holes in the top to mount it, but that's let's do a test print of that and see how it goes. I can refine. I might actually throw some holes in first, and then the test print is a great way to see how far they're off, because I don't think on the original FJ part that they're in any set order. They're just kind of where they landed. Okay, so the bosses did turn out to be 57 millimeters apart and in a triangle. So 3 things at 60 degrees. We got there bang on, I think. We'll see from the print. And then this is just clearance because the adapter will be bolted on through there. These will bolt through here into the back of the wheel, and then this whole thing will slide over the adapter we're making and onto the Ididit column. I'm going to print these as spacers, separate pieces, because it'll allow me to print this right on the bed, and if once they're glued on, it'll be the same. It'll be a nicer print. So yeah, that's the plan. Here we go, guys. So this is the little adapter cover I came up with. It lines up like so. I'm not going to bother putting the spacers in right now, but you get what they are. I think that's a good look. It's going to need body working, obviously. It comes in as good as it can. And then over here, it'll be like that on the column. Again, hide that seam. It'll be body worked out. And then this will clamp between the adapter and in because there's space in that hub for that. And yeah, I think that'll do the job. Now we're just down to finishing the hub. To do that, I think I'm going to have to make something to mount this wheel by those 2 bolts and come off this way so that I can clamp it in a milling vise without damaging any of their work that they've already done. So there will be a piece coming off here, bolted here with a weldment up this way, and then the whole thing will flip upside down and clamp by that welded tube. That's the next project. I've had to make a hub here that'll mount with a 1x1 shaft off of this. This will bolt to the existing FJ steering wheel bolt pattern. There's 2 8mm threads there, and allow me to bolt this in with a 1-inch shaft welded to it, and that'll allow me to mount it in my milling vise without ruining their finished wheel. So I'm currently just cutting that hub that we just saw on the screen. We don't do much steel on this mill, so I'm taking it very easy. As you can see, we mostly deal with aluminum. There's the part after the cut. Cut well, only a little bit. I left a hair to pop it out so it wouldn't rattle. When we're done pulling that out, I'll clean the mill scale off. And I found a piece of 1-inch tube in my scrap bin. I'm not sure what it was before, but I've cleaned it up. Once that's all cleaned on the plate, we'll weld that somewhere there, nice and centered. And that will allow me to flip that over after, mount it in the vise, and keep their finish on the steering wheel safe away from the vise, so that we can machine the back of the steering wheel without having to clamp the wheel itself in the vise. Okay, so after a little bit of welding, we have the mount for the steering wheel. I'll be mounting it in the vise this way, and that'll allow us to hang the wheel over the vise. Okay, after machining the other side of this steel piece to get it level and square to this in the mill, and cutting this down to the right length needed in the vise, I've just officially made the least safe airbag I've ever seen. We'll see how that goes for machining the backside of the wheel. There we go, solidly mounted in the vise. I've checked it's level to the world. We'll zero it in with an indicator off the mill, but I'll do that off camera. I need to take a little off this surface because they've got their jelly coating on that. I want to bring that down flush so I can shim it enough to account for our 3D printed piece we made here, which bolts into here, but it sits up on this lip. So I need to make sure that when we're all done, that adapter here squishes down on that little 3D print, but not enough to crush it, because I still want it to be steel on steel right here for strength, because we're going to have those bolts are going to be outside in this range, so I need this surface to be very solid. Here we go. So still protected, still wrapped up. We've got the center hub cut out to have room for the nut from the steering shaft and a socket. Get the idea. I'll center that. This is the horn button at the, what would that be, 9:30 or 10:30 position. And then this is the hub to get there. So it'll bolt on through that hole, that hole, that hole, and this hole. This is the existing horn hole for the FJ, so it'll need a washer. And it'll go into this hole, this hole, this hole, this hole. The rest are existing holes from the old spacer. This is the puller holes, how you'd pull this off the column. So when it's all said and done, this will sit like that. Bolt into the hub. Leave room for the nut and a socket and the horn wire, hopefully. I'll mock it all up on the column and see how it looks. This is what I came up with for the collar. It should be a press fit over our adapter. Maybe a little bit of a glue on. I was originally going to do a bolted on one, but I'd rather have the metal on metal contact on the hub adapter instead of having a plastic shim in the way and then having to do a steel shim in between to make up for it. This loses us almost a millimeter of depth on the steering wheel, which does matter in these cases, and just gets it solid aluminum on steel, which is happier for an adapter like that. This piece has no load on it, so a little bit of glue holding it on along this rim, going right onto our little adapter, should be perfect. Okay, the second collar is done. I threw a texture on the outside of this one, just in case they decide not to paint it. It'll look good already. Little brim to peel off here. And she's ready to go. Clean up that edge. Comes off pretty easy though. Nice surface texture. Give it a bit of detail. Okay, here completion. Here's their wheel restored. It actually looks really nice. Horn button still fits on. It's not the horn, it's just the cover. These portions here are the horn, but this is just the center cover. Our adapter up to the Ididit column. I think it looks okay. I peeled back just enough to make sure our gap is good and that it doesn't rub, because that could be irritating. I'm pretty happy with that. Time to get that back to Stones and see if Lee's okay with it or if there's any changes he'd like to make. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Okay guys, we've reached the end of another video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, maybe found something you learned. We'll try to keep more of these interesting job shop type jobs coming through, along with my normal videos, trying to do stuff on my trucks or my cars around here. And maybe even we'll showcase some of the badges and things we do at some point. I haven't decided how much of my regular business I want to put on my YouTube channel. But if you want to see any of that, it's all available on my Instagram at Razor Customs, the website razorcustomsmachining.com, or you can contact me through email at razorcustoms@yahoo.ca. Okay, hopefully that was enjoyable. We'll see how the next one goes.